Foreigners in Portugal are a diverse mix. This is the point I'm making, and what it's leading to is the possibility of a lobbying and representative organisation of all of those nations, supposedly 190 plus nations represented here in Portugal. And the predominant members of the foreigner community will, of course, be coming from the former colonies of Portugal, mainly Brazilians, and from the African colonies as well, Cape Verde as well, and Angola. Indians and those from South Asia are larger in number here in Portugal, alongside significant numbers, as well as the UK, and the, the Brits have been coming to Portugal for a long time, haven't they? As well as the Germans, of course. Lower profile. I think there are many more Germans here than we would realise. But as I was saying and chatting with a friend, a German in our community here in Portugal, much quieter as a community, sort of blended into the hills of the Algarve when moving away from Germany. And one of the big prompts, I think, years ago, many decades ago, was the fear of nuclear war, wasn't it? Oh, we dealt with that, though. That's gone away now, hasn't it? But a lot of people moved away, I think, away from large urban centres in Western Europe to southern Europe. Among them, Germans moving to the Algarve to live an off-grid life as well. You know, the early adopters of that idea. And they're blended into the hills of Portugal. Many of them, I suspect, Dutch as well, maybe never even bothered to register. And it's probably, it might feel like it's too late now. Can you imagine having lived here for 30 years and you never bothered to register because no one seemed that bothered all those years ago? And as each year went by, it became more of a problem to show yourself. There must be people like that here in Portugal, right? And you think immediately there would be a large number of people in Central like that, but I suspect there are many more, and certainly longer standing people of that type who moved to Portugal in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, squirreled away. They are parts of and possibly pillars of their communities, small communities in the Algarve, but nobody ever asked any questions, so nobody answered them either. And now we're in a different time, aren't we? We're in a totally different time of migration here in Portugal. Anyway, so Brazil, India, Angola, Cape Verde, and the UK, alongside significant numbers from Nepal, Bangladesh, Ukraine, and of course, we had a huge Ukrainian infusion, I shall say, in the last few years as well, and other European nations driven by economic opportunities, lifestyle, and historical ties. And for each community, and that's why I want to talk to all the different communities. You know, we are. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, when we look at our community here, we are among the most privileged and fortunate. Many people who've come to retire and enjoy a better quality of life. Other people we'll speak to from other communities will be, coming here to work and to increase their prospects in life. And I'm looking forward to speaking to people from other communities other than our own. I mean, birds of a feather flock together and all that. It's not a criticism of our community, but wouldn't it be interesting to find out what's motivated other people to come to Portugal and what their lives are like, and little things like what are their creature comforts, so I don't know, somebody from Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, what's their, in the way that we're talking about how we can't get decent crisps because or what do you call them, chips. The Americans call them chips, don't they, rather than crisps. I'm keen to find out what the Brazilians will be missing from Brazil, for example, and all the other nations that we've been talking about this morning. Driven by economic opportunities, lifestyle, and historical ties, making up around 10 to 15% of the population. And come on, it's at this point that we should be utterly in gratitude and acknowledgement of our Portuguese hosts. They are dealing with an influx of 10 to 15% of foreigners. Now, for any country or culture to be dealing with that and doing that, I think is an incredible achievement. And of course, it will prompt all kinds of challenges, insecurities, fears even. And I think part of wanting to be part of a group of foreigners is to work in, these things at that scale. We need to be talking to each other. We can't. I'm not sure you can just hope for the best with movement, with human movement of this kind. 10 to 15% of your population, if you're a Portuguese person, is foreign. And that must, that must be profound for you if you're Portuguese. And I think there's a responsibility among us foreigners to manage and attenuate the effects of us and the movement of us coming into the country. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. So, largest foreign communities, recent data according to AI, and notwithstanding what I said before, don't necessarily believe any of this. One wise way to go about this might be to see it as indicative rather than utterly accurate. Let's get a sense of what's going on here, and we can argue about the numbers on another occasion, or not at all. The largest group by far, then, due to shared language and culture, with over 300,000 residents, are Brazilians here in Portugal. India has become a major source of immigration, often ranking second or third. Angola and Cape Verde, significant African communities linked by Portuguese history, of course. And it's not going to be too difficult to get a Cape Verdean. I wouldn't have thought on the show. We've got friends of friends. We've got 6 degrees of separation working in our favor there. Spouses and loved ones from Cape Verde. Whether they want to be on the show and talk to us is another matter. Of course, not everybody's that extroverted. But keen, and of course, just like foreigners you meet in a foreign country, they tend to be the more outgoing, extroverted, and adventurous people. So that will be skewed as well, won't it? But let's hope that we're going to meet adventurous, outgoing, and extroverted people from all of the countries I'm mentioning now, who'll come and talk to us about their particular point of view on the show in the new year. UK, large European contingent, especially post-Brexit. Well, there were a lot before Brexit as well, to be fair, going back hundreds of years, with the connections up in Porto and the love of the Algarve, of course, not hundreds of years in the Algarve, but hundreds of years up in the north. Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, growing South Asian communities seeking work, generally work-based. Ukraine, as I say, Aleem will be giving us a Pakistani perspective in due course. Delighted to do so. Chatted with him yesterday about that. Ukraine, a substantial European group, particularly after recent global events. Key trends then among the immigration and the United Nations of Portugal: the Lusophonic influence, strong ties to Brazil and Portuguese-speaking African nations. The PALOP, CPLP, aka, remains central. Asian influx, a notable increase from South Asia, India, Nepal, Bangladesh for economic reasons. European growth, expats from the UK, Italy, France, and other EU countries are common. Although you are seeing a drop-off in those, and I did see Greece seems to be picking up where Portugal was perhaps 10, 15 years ago, with advantageous taxation offers. And things are changing here in Portugal, no question about it. The driving factors, says my search here, are high quality of life, safety, affordability, favorable tax policies, although they are becoming less so, like the NHR. It's just the NHR 2.0 now, which isn't available to many people, it's true. Digital nomad appeal, but they are a fickle bunch. Honestly, digital nomads, it's like, oh my God, my cappuccino wasn't very good, I'm going to look for another country. Is that a fair assessment and caricature of digital nomads? They're not all like that, but I think they are a fickle bunch, and they're going to go where it's hardest, man, where it's cool, where it's 6'7" and Riz and skibbity Riz. Maybe that's not exactly how all digital nomads speak, but you get the gist. Continents, the foreign population is roughly split between the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia, with the Americas, mostly Brazil, and Africa, PALOP, being traditional strongholds alongside rising Asian and European groups. Overall growth, then, the foreign-born population has seen dramatic growth, increasing from a small percentage to potentially 10 to 15% of the total population in only a decade, my friends. And that's why I think it's an important thing to talk about, and to play our part, to take responsibility for our brothers and sisters from our own country as well, I think, in some ways. Excuse me, I hope that was I was on the microphone, and the right microphone, and muted it so you didn't get coughed on and sniffed at then. A slightly deeper dive here. And this is AI. It's suddenly gone up on a second search from 300,000 to 484,000 Brazilians. And I've heard that figure, around 500,000. 31% of all foreigners are Brazilian in Portugal. As of 2025, it says here the foreign resident population has reached a historic high with approximately 1.54 million foreign citizens living in the country. This group now accounts for 15 average of 14 to 16% of the total population. Brazilians are biggest, Indians, the second numbering 98,000, around the 100,000 mark, and Angolans with 92,000 there. A bit more demographic demographic angle on this. Age and gender. The foreign population is generally younger than the native Portuguese population. That's interesting, isn't it? Because we do have a considerably and notably aging Portuguese population. The median age of the incomers is 37 compared to 44 in the Portuguese population. So that's interesting in its own right. The median age of the native population is 44, is 37 among foreigners. As of 2024, approximately 56% are male and 44% are female. This, I think, is very interesting. And the first figure I heard on these lines was 60%. It's now 71 a few days later. Geographic distribution now. The majority of foreign residents live in the districts of Lisbon, Faro, Setúbal, and Porto, as you might expect. And that's where most Portuguese live. 60% of Portuguese people live in the big cities and the coast, including the Algarve, of course, but 71% of foreign residents. So, I mean, I guess you get a sense of them because there are fewer people in central Portugal, but central Portugal is quite the magnet for foreigners as well. Economic contribution. Immigrants are vital to sectors such as tourism, agriculture, civil construction, and catering. In 2024, foreign nationals represented about 14.4% of taxpayers, contributing to the social security system. Investment and lifestyle. High-income foreigners, digital nomads, and retirees, particularly from the US, China, and Northern Europe, have historically been attracted by the Golden Visa, now strictly modified, although still available. Just talk to Bobby O'Reilly from an investment point of view. And from a humanitarian point of view, Portugal also hosts several thousand asylum seekers and refugees, with significant numbers from Afghanistan, Gambia, that's something I didn't know, Gambia, and Ukraine under temporary protection. So there you go, a little insight into the United Nations of Portugal. Let's make that real. Let's lift it off the page and bring some humanity to it. So it's not just statistics, and we will talk to people from those communities. Help me out here with finding those people. Mel thinks it's a good idea to build bridges across the cultures. We've talked about lactose crisps and the possibility of bacalhau crisps. Antonio F is here, everybody. There's bacalhau flavored ice cream. But Antonio F, would you not agree that that's an incredible omission in this culture to not have bacalhau flavored crisps? And who's had those? Yes, I know a Brit living in the edges of Lisboa, lived here 30 years, had 4 kids here, but not registered. No idea how he manages the stuff we all need. Gosh, that's going to become increasingly difficult, is it not? Maybe the Brazilians are missing what 60% of Australian population were not born there, or their parents weren't. That's extraordinary, is it not? Didn't know that. But it's kind of obvious when you think about it. Very important to build bridges between different cultures. Yeah, I think it will be a loss if we don't. Well, Arend, the US based on immigrants, foreigners, since they almost extinguished the natives. Not sure what you mean there. I get the point, but I think I know what you're talking about. I don't understand exactly the point you're making there, Matty. Bear in mind, Mel says, percentage of foreigners in Portugal is partly due to immigration, but also due to the high rate of emigration. Overall population numbers roughly the same for decades. Yeah, but the proportion of foreigners has gone up, hasn't it? Doubled in a decade. Was that not what I just read out? And that is a significant impact, I think, on the standing population, and hence why I think it's very important for us to represent ourselves well. Now, as well as calling for people from those communities to come and chat with us on the Good Morning Portugal show, talk about their where they've come from, talk about what it's like to be somebody from the culture you've come from here in Portugal, what life is like, and the little creature comforts, the personal stuff, what you miss as well, and what you hope to bring to the country. This should be a two-way street. And I've talked to a few different people about expectations. How it might be that the Portuguese might mentor and coach us in being more Portuguese. What exists at the moment in that department? You've got there's no citizenship test apart from passing the A2. I wouldn't say the A2 is the best way of learning the language or learning about the culture. Immersion seems to be, a better way. Although I'm not knocking it, and people who live in glass houses, it's not like I'm fluent in Portuguese and criticizing the A2. Far from it. But it does seem like there's space for an educational program, if not in person, then online. Materials, resources that point people in the right direction. And some cultures, nationalities, generally speaking, are doing better than others, and some are more controversial than others. And that's why it's important to have a conversation about, I think, cultural expectations and the to and fro. What might be best noted, understood, consumed, and what sort of behavior might be expected of people in the country, as alongside what can be brought and what can be shared. And the part of the immigration phenomenon is an inevitability. Things cannot and do not stay the same. So this is happening, and that's why I think it's better to be grasping the nettle where it's awkward and difficult and talking about it, rather than just like looking the other way. Tum-ti-tum, let's hope this all works out, because I don't think that is a very good policy. And we see what happens politically, don't we, when things aren't managed properly, perhaps by communities themselves and how they represent themselves. We see what happens and how the resentment can grow. We need grown-up, big boy and big girl pants conversations about this, I would say. Mel also saying here, another fun fact, population of Australia has tripled in my lifetime, hence why these foreigner numbers seem low to me. Yeah, how many Australians are there? And it's a huge country as well, isn't it? But do understand from a local perspective. Absolutely. And ultimately, everything is personal, isn't it? And you can't micromanage everybody's expectations and triggers and upsets and everything. But I think we can probably do a little bit more to talk more, to connect more, and as you say, Mel, as you've put it, to build bridges across the cultures. So it's that dynamic as well. Not only that there be some sort of representation between the foreigners en masse and the Portuguese government and Portuguese people, the Portuguese culture, but the respective cultures, I think, would do well to connect with each other. And what's more, if we began to have what would be called, and these words have all been sort of politicized, polarized, and ruined, haven't they? You need like the word like diversity, multicultural, and these are all just like push button things now. So any possible good in them is kind of undermined, is it not, with the time we live in, and how these words have been weaponized, and the good intent, in everything seems to be, there is suspicion. And good intent is undermined because of people getting triggered before they get to the juice and the good bits in a conversation. And of course, that's down to us about how we manage our conversations. But can you imagine a multicultural festival? And I mean that literally. I'm not talking about politically multicultural. I'm not talking about, trying to impose ideology on other people, but just think about a gathering of all the nations showing themselves off in their best light, such that they be understood, and to share what they are made of, literally, actually share what they're made of and what their contribution might be, and to invite Portuguese people to understand, and the other cultures to understand, try our food, hear our music. This is what we're made of. This is who we are. It's represented in our culture. And here is a demonstration of our culture. What a brilliant event that would be. If we don't end up with a United Nations of Portugal lobbying body or association, we'll have an amazing weekend, will we not? If all of those tribes got together. And that would be not some sort of globalized homogenization. This would be like, this is what we're like from this country, generally speaking. You have to do it in generalizations, don't you? You have to do it in stereotypes to a certain extent. But what fun that would be, And what what flavored crisps come from Nepal? For probably globalized Lays, to be fair, right? And global brands, and we would get educated that way as well, wouldn't we? Scratching the surface underneath all the global brands that have colonized your country. What was there before? That's delicious. Agreed, Carl, says Mel. Need the discussions also to show it is not the fault of immigration, which was my point. Without it, Portugal's population would have declined heaps due to emigration. Yeah, absolutely. Let's get together. Enough of this division, says Garvo, who's suddenly here. We've summoned the Garvo. We have differences. Let's embrace it. Exatamente. We don't always have to agree. That's okay. No, we don't. We don't always have to agree. We don't have to be the same, but we could respectfully differ, couldn't we? And we can enjoy the differences. My mission this year encourages people to be more understanding and kinder to each other. Well, what a beautiful note to end on. And what a beautiful emblem for this in the shape of lambs. And that's the video that has been sent to us by Peter. So let me load that up into the video deck. And the birds of peace, not the silence of the lambs, that's something entirely different. The peace of the lamb. It seems like a good motif, a good emblem of gentleness. Does it not this morning? On a beautiful note to end on, thanks to Pete. Exactly, Gary. The wonder of the world is our diversity and different perspectives. Yes, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Let's hear them. Let's do our best to come together in a spirit of the United Nations, as I suspect it was meant to be before it became corporatized, and we can do this in an organic and human grassroots way to make life great for people here in Portugal. Because I mean, that's the point of it, isn't it? It's to enjoy our lives together here. Now that we have all thrown ourselves together, what is the best way that we might do this? And here to finish is a field of lambs bleating and playing together, I suspect, here, if I can load it up correctly. Thanks, Pete, for this. Yeah, a minute of lambs playing for you as we go out pondering the idea of a United Nations of Portugal. It is my article today for the Portugal Resident. Morning all, Bobby O'Reilly. Bobby, I think will you be our spokesman for Ireland, or do you know somebody who would be good? I think there's all sorts of wonderful people you could introduce us to, Bobby, who may wish to speak to us to talk about their national perspective as somebody now living in Portugal. It'd be wonderful. The United Nations of Portugal. Let's do it for 2026. Let's hear those voices from people from different nationalities all around the world and enjoy that richness of difference in human beings and what we can learn from each other. Bobby, good to see you this morning. Looking forward to chatting to you on the show soon. Yeah, and back to Gary then. Need the discussions. Oh, no, that wasn't Gary. Where's Gary? Enough of this division. We have differences. Let's embrace and learn from them. We don't always have to agree. That's okay. It's not that important, is it? Let's find out what we have in common rather than all this focus on what's different about each other and what's upsetting us about this person or that person and what they think. And we're with you, Gary. Your mission this year to encourage people to be more understanding and kinder to each other. Amen, brother. Nice big round of applause for you and some lambs for you now. Have a great day. See you.